Okay, first thing we want to do is separate out the stem, which definitely needs to be done. Picking up my color. Doing a wet on dry. Softening this edge, giving it a place to go with water. Had a lot of water on there, some of it dripped from my brush, but that was okay, we probably needed it. Okay. I'm going to darken this line here too. Create that stem a little bit better. And on this side. Now this side of our stem is lighter, so I'm just removing some of that color so it will stay lighter. Okay. And I've got a number 4. Now these veins are pretty light on here, but I'm going to make them a little bit darker. But we are going to pick up some of the lemon yellow, because that color that's on my palette right there is my background color, so we need to lighten that. Need to add some water to it too. There we go. And don't forget, every time you add water, it does lighten it, so. Okay. So I've picked up my color. Make sure I don't have a lot of water dripping on there. And I'm just going to run this. It looks like it's right about here. And it comes up to here. And then just going to soften that away on that one side. The inside can be one solid line, but the outside I want it to fade. So all I'm doing is using clean water, running my brush nice and flat on the paper, and just letting the tip of my brush hit the outside of that paint, cleaning my brush as I go, making sure I don't have a ton of water on there, but you do need some. And this doesn't have to float all the way across the whole paper or anything. I just don't want it to be real harsh. Got everything nice and dry. And we're going to pick up some more of the same color. I'm going to create a vein down the middle here because I want that to actually be highlighted in the center, so that by doing this it's going to create that highlight. Here we go. I'm going to clean my brush, wipe off any drips, lay my brush down flat against the paper, soften that outside edge. Alright, now let's try and soften those away real quick. I'm going to turn this so I can get at it. I want to make sure you can see me. Clean brush, laying it flat up against the veins. Paint on there for some reason. Again, it's just wet on dry. Soften that edge. And we're going to let this one dry, and we'll go back and do some more detail on these two. So we're going to be doing this leaf. It's got some dark values down towards the tip. So we're going to use the same exact color. It's our darkest of the greens, just a little bit of the yellow lemon in there, or lemon yellow, whatever you want to say. So we're going to just deepen this in here. Bit of deep over here. Okay, so since this is wet on dry, I'm just cleaning out my brush, and I'm going to soften away this edge and that edge. Okay. Just a little bit of deep in here. Now we're going to let that dry. Let's take a look at the bud one more time, as long as we're right in this area. We could still deepen this. And I'm just going to soften some of that away. I do want to soften this edge out here. Now we can reinforce that dark value and this dark value. And then soften it away. And it's pretty dark over here too, so we'll add some in over here. Keeping in mind where those lines going up are. And this one is real dark, so I'm going to reinforce that one and this one. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, now let's do some more work on that leaf. Got my smaller brushes out just in case I needed them, but it doesn't look like I'm going to line down that center now for that center vein. We're going to do it on this side. Whenever you load your brush to do line work like this, you always want to bring your point to your tip to a point. Now, since I just did those veins, I'm going to skip over the vein area and soften around them, so I don't want to take them off. But yeah, this is doing exactly what I wanted it to do. It's creating a shadow next to that lighter vein that I had put down before. What we're going to do today then, so we're going to finish up the leaves. We're going to do just a real mid-value green wash over the bud. We're going to leave this one alone, but the bud and these four here. And we're going to do this just as a glaze, so it'll be basically color right onto dry paper. I'm using a number 6 round. And we're going to start here and work in this direction. Keep your hands out of it. Got the color mixed up, so we're okay there. It's kind of like a sappy green. And again, this is just a glaze. And it won't cover up all your highlights or anything. It's just going to give it a little bit more of a value of green to it. And we should pretty much be done with the leaves. Amazing how much it all takes. And again, this is going to be just unifying these leaves, all the details and everything together. And you see I went over there, so I'm just going to pick pick that up real quick. And you don't want this to dry into harsh lines or anything, so you want to make sure that you don't let that happen. And I'm just going to use a golden ochre as our first shading. I'm going to shade this entire area with this color. And now that it's wet, it's going to go right into burnt sienna. And we're going to do the deep shaded areas. I like to make sure my brush is at a point. Alright, so I got it laid in where I want it. Now I'm going to just soften the edge. Wipe the drips off my brush. I just have a clean brush softening this edge away. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. Soften that edge. Now we do want to separate down here as well. We're going to start out with just the golden ochre as the first shading. Because I don't want this to dry as a harsh line, I'm just going to soften it away quick. And then I'm going to pick up the burnt sienna. And get some of these corners in here. And soften this away. You don't ever want to take your darkest value and outline the entire area, because that just, it's not realistic looking. So you want to get your corners nice and dark and soften them away, but you don't want to just outline. Just doesn't look realistic. Now we're going to do the same thing on the outside of that. And then just periodically down the sides of this. And definitely in that corner. And just soften it away. Okay, so we got some shading there. Now we need to do the same thing right down here. So I am going to turn this right around. I'm going to use the same two values, golden ochre and burnt sienna. We already got some shading in this edge. And this corner here is pretty dark, so I'm going to make sure that it gets nice and dark there. And we can bring this right up over here. Soften this edge away. This is wet on dry technique that we're using. I always wipe off too much water sometimes. Watch that. And it's hard to soften. It dries too quickly. Okay, now we're going to pick up the burnt sienna again. Bring the brush to a point. And this one is pretty dark all the way up actually, but we're going to deepen it down here. Like that. Then we've got some spots that are nice and dark and some that are just the golden ochre, which is what you want. Now don't go all the way into your corners and take that dark out and soften it away. You want some of that dark in there. That's the goal here, is to create that value change. You always want a piece of paper towel hanging around just in case. Alright. Now I took a lot of that out of there, so I'm going to add some more back in.